So as you all know, my new album, Freak Show, is dropping in just like 6 days now at this point. And really, I just wanted to try to talk to you guys about what's coming, you know, just talk about the album a little bit and kind of get y'all a little bit more amped for it. So I just figured we gonna do something a little interesting with this. So I don't actually have anybody in particular that wants to interview me about this album, so I don't really have questions that I got from anybody in particular. So we just did this thing and we resorted to ChatGPT. Honestly, it's just convenient and a lot easier for me to figure out what to talk about. So I'm gonna have a bunch of questions here and I'm gonna answer them and see what I have to say to you guys about the album that's coming up, man. I'm extremely hype. If you couldn't tell already, what makes this album different from anything you've released before? That is a question that has so many parts to answer, honestly, like so many different ways I can answer it. I mean, all of the beats that you're going to hear on this new album are so different from anything I've ever done. Like, I was intentionally trying to pick beats that were more experimental and cinematic in sound because that was just, I just wanted to try doing that. I was listening to a lot of Yeet and all his beats at the time. It was 2093 and I forget the name of the album that came after that wasn't as good, but anyway, 2093, those beats were so impactful for me. I wanted to pick those, and so, or beats that sounded similar. When I found a producer that had beats that were like that, I was so excited. I was like, how am I gonna put my own Dantaé spin on these beats? So it's gonna sound just sonically completely different in terms of at least the beats, the way I perform on the music. I mean, I have a bunch of different things that I tried differently on this, aside from just the beat selection or the way I rap. I mean, there's more singing than normal. There's a whole bunch of different things. But the other layer to it is that this one is probably, not that I haven't been personal on other albums before, but this one is way more personal than the other ones. I wanted Freak Show to be the one where I used it almost as a public therapy session, you know, where everybody hears the things that go on in my head when, you know, the clock strikes 3 a.m. is how I like to tell people, you know? Not that you're always in this mental state, but like, you know, everybody knows that those late night points where you're like, oh, I'm running a mile a minute and you're just thinking about all the negative things, you know what I'm saying? And this album is going to cover a lot of different things I've never spoken about. We're not even just like in music, but in general, you know what I'm saying? I have in some cases, but in some cases not. I've just thought about them. And so this is going to be so vastly different because of that. And between that and the beat selections and the way I perform. If you had to describe this album in one sentence, what would it be? I'm gonna just say, honestly, the chaotic story of my highs and my lows. And I'm emphasizing my highs and my lows because this is a personal album and I want this to really cover when I'm at my highest points and when I'm feeling myself and when I'm at my lowest points and not feeling so great, you know what I'm saying? So I think I forgot the sentence I said, but honestly, the sentence I said was pretty good for covering what I believe answers that question. Why is now the right time for this project? Oh, I mean, if we're talking about the actual release date, April 1st, the reason that that's so important is because of a theme that I feel like I can't really explain all that well without spoiling the album right now, but we'll just say the first half of the theme, the idea of it being this circus where I'm introducing people into my personal circus, and it's just like the idea of clowns and that circus carnival vibe feels like April Fool's Day fits so well for that. I wanted to hit that date so much because of that. And in terms of like why now is a good time just for me, I just feel like I went through a lot of different things that I spent enough time going through and living through and kind of having it sit to talk about it comfortably without going insane, you know what I'm saying? And I just feel like it's a good point for me to really express myself and just not even just in what I learned about myself personally, but about all the different types of music I've taken in and all the different influences that have impacted me and to create this album and the way it sounds. So honestly, this is the perfect time because I get to finally express all of that in one go. What do you want people to feel the first time they hear it? Oh, this is honestly an easy question to answer. Like, because I thought about it every single time I think about this album. All I can imagine when people hear this album, I just want them to be at the very end. Like they listen to it and, you know, obviously I want them to feel super hype. I don't want them to be amped about it. But when I want the end, I want people to finish the album and kind of sit there like, just like this. You know, just kind of speechless. Like, obviously you're probably not going to talk after you hear the album out loud to yourself. It's gonna be weird, but you get what I'm saying, you know? I just feel like that, you know, that sinking feeling, I don't want to say sinking feeling, but that feeling you get after you finish a movie and you're just like blown away and you're just sitting back like, wow, like, oh wow, that was an experience. Like, I want it to feel like an experience, you know what I'm saying? That's kind of what I want people to feel, is just that overwhelming sense of wow. you know? And it's just not even just because it sounds musically good, but because of the journey. Because I consider this my cinematic album. The one that is literally a movie from like start to finish. You go all the way through it and you go through a journey with me. And at the end of the journey, you're like, damn, what a journey that was. You know what I'm saying? So that's my answer to that. What's something about this album that would surprise your listeners? I mean, come on, I talked about this, so I'm not going to go super in detail. But one of the things is going to obviously be the fact that like the topics I'm talking about, because you wouldn't expect me to talk about them. Nobody would. But the other thing is just going to be sonically how it sounds. The beats I picked and the way I produced it and performed it. People are going to be like, whoa, what? And it's because, and I consider it an evolution. Like I learned so much in the last 2 years of me just practicing in all this vaulted music I'm never going to put out that I just played with stuff. And everyone's going to hear the product of me playing with all that stuff for a super long time and making something actually cohesive out of it after. That's really what I think is the good answer to that question. What inspired the overall sound or direction of the album? Well, the first obvious answer to that is something I already said. I was listening to a lot of Yeet at the time and the experimental things, or Chromacopia, where we had Tyler playing more experimental while also deep diving into his personal life. You know, those are some great examples right there. As far as like the direction, you know, the idea of it being a circus in particular, that's actually interesting because the very first song that I wrote for this album a year ago was Freak Show, which I revealed in the titles. And when I wrote that, it was because the beat was so like chaotic, and I'm not gonna make, you know, show what the beat is or anything like that, but it was like when I heard it, I was like, oh, this is getting me amped. I was like, oh my god. And it was giving like circus vibes, and I pretty much built the whole album around that beat. Like I was like, okay, well, if this is like this, how many beats does this one producer that I like have that sound similar in different directions, you know? And so I ended up building that, and I was like, yo, I could kind of make it be like a whole circus theme if I get it right and keep them all similar enough so it doesn't stray too far, but also different enough so it doesn't sound like the same song every time. And I was like, man, I'm gonna keep building on this. And then I ended up getting the costume to put on the Ringmaster costume for the album cover, and it really started coming together. Realistically, the overall sound created the direction. Like I heard the beat and made the direction after that because of how it sounded. Like, I mean, obviously when I heard the beat, normal people ain't just gonna be like, oh, circus, right? But like for me, that's kind of what I felt, like the chaos of it all. And I was like, yo, I want that chaos to be Freak Show. It makes so much sense. Like obviously I wasn't gonna call it carnival or circus because it was chaotic, and it makes me think of the idea of freak shows being this thing where I mean, if you go back to what freak shows actually are, it's like the people that were like deformed or in different ways, and they were being showcased in ways that they're not supposed to be. And in that own regard, it was like they were chaotic, you know? It was like a chaotic thing to do, to like put people out there like that just because of their disabilities or deformities. And it's really wrong, obviously, but in my case, I felt like it made sense, especially when you hear the album and hear the entire thing as a whole and realize what Freak Show really means, you know? And I'm not gonna spoil that, but point is, that really is the inspiration overall. Did this project come together quickly or over time? This is a weird answer because some of it came together quickly and some of it didn't. So like I said, Freak Show I wrote a year ago. It was a long time ago. And then I had writer's block for a very long time. I didn't write for months. I just had Freak Show, like the draft version of Freak Show in a vault. And I was like, I know I'm gonna finish this album, I just don't know when. Months went by before I wrote another song. And then another few months went by and I wrote another song. And at some point I got really invested and I was like, hold on a minute. I'm so ready. Like I'm locked in. I don't know what happened. Like my writer's block finally cleared. Fog was gone. And I just like locked all the way in. And like I really kind of breezed through a lot of the album. And like not to say that I rushed it, but I was so locked that I wrote it, and a lot of it in like a month. Like pretty much like the last month before I submitted it for distribution. It took a while to the most important thing to realize about this too is that when I made Freak Show, I had all of these beats saved by this guy in a playlist. I would listen to them back over and over again in a row to see if I could like catch the vibe of the album. And that guy kept making beats over the entire year, and some of those beats got scrapped, and I put in new beats because he made new ones that I felt fit better. And then there were other beats that literally changed like the week before I was gonna distribute it. You know, I was like, okay, wait, this one doesn't work really. I can't write to this, like not the way I want to. Got another one, I was like, whoa, this one's way more fitting, you know? So it was a process where I kept changing things over and over again. It came together relatively quickly if you consider the fact that it was a year, but not the entire year of writing. But at the same time, you know, I did a whole lot of changes over time, like a lot. So where were you mentally or emotionally while creating it? That depends on when and which songs, realistically, because certain songs I had to dig into a point of my brain where I had to really bring out the sad part of me so that I could write it effectively. A lot of the time, though, I would say that on both sides, I was just extremely, like, motivated because I really wanted to get this out, and I really, like, every time I listened to all the beats in a row, I could feel the vibe and I could hear the lyrics that I hadn't put to the pen, like, put to the page yet, and I was like, man, I know I want to write to this. I know I want to release this on April 1st. It makes so much sense. I just got to figure it out. And then that was that, man. I figured it out, and so I would say overall I was motivated, but you know, and I was hyped when I was writing the hype songs, and I was more on the emotional side when I was writing the emotional songs. It just really depended on what I was writing, but overall motivated describes it very well. What was the most challenging song to finish and why? Jesus. I actually have to look at the track list for that. This is a tough one to answer because one of them I would say was the hardest to write because I was pretty much crying a little bit while I was writing it just because it was a tough one to write. But as far as overall, like, hardest to do, I'm not gonna say all the different, go through each thing and why they were hard. I'm gonna pick one song that fits the best answer for me and try to briefly explain so I don't spoil. I'm gonna say House of Mirrors because of not only the theme of that song is it difficult to write, and it's the longest song on the album too, but also because of the way I had to perform it. I mean, when you hear what I'm talking about, you'll understand it. I won't spoil it, but it's just by far out of all the songs, it's definitely got the most going on, the most writing I had to do, the most producing I had to do, the most work. So I'm gonna say House of Mirrors was definitely the most difficult. Which track are you most excited for people to hear? Impossible question. And that's because that's like, and I've said this to somebody before that asked me this, it's like asking somebody that, like, when you're about to show them your favorite movie, it's like they ask you, which scene are you most excited for me to see? And it's like, none of them. I'm excited for you to see the whole movie and the way that it all connects. The same goes for this album, because this album isn't just one song, you know what I'm saying? And it probably sounds insane, like people can pick their favorite song they want to show, but this one is all interconnected in a storyline that goes from the beginning to end, point A to point B. There's an arc, and I just feel like I can't pick one song, you know, that I'm excited to show off the most. I can tell you what my favorite song is, which I won't say because I don't want to influence your opinions, but I just feel like if I had to pick one song that I'm excited to show, it's none of them. It's none. It's the whole album as a whole. I just want you to hear the journey from beginning to end without stopping, no skipping, and then really take a minute to process it, you know, really think about what I'm doing, what I'm talking about, and consume it, you know, as a whole, not just one song. So, is there a song that defines the whole project? Definitely House of Mirrors. 100%. Definitely. The entire theme of the album when I made that idea was House of Mirrors. I knew House of Mirrors had to be on there, and it is a pivotal song on the album, and if it wasn't there, the album would not work. So it's just that is easily the one that defines the whole project for sure. Which song almost didn't make the album? That is an interesting question. Realistically, I had the track list solidified before I had the beats all figured out entirely. I don't think there was a single song that's actually on there that almost didn't make the album. None that's actually there that almost didn't. There is a version of Juggling that I was making before this on a totally different beat that didn't make the album. It just straight up didn't, because when I just made the chorus to play with it to see if I messed with it. I didn't hate it, but I thought it was mid, and every single song was a hit for me. And I didn't want to actively put that one on there knowing it would be mid, knowing I was like, why would I intentionally put a mid song on there knowing that everything else was a hit? Like, I saw that the original version of Juggling that I started, where it's just the chorus that I wrote, not on the album. But every song that's on there now, it never was doubt in my mind it wasn't going to make it. Like, I knew I was going to make all these songs, whether the beat was different and I changed the beat or whatever, the topics and what I was rapping about always was going to make it. Nothing was in doubt about that. Oh, this is a very perfect question for this, honestly. If this album were a movie, what kind would it be? I think it would be a thriller, a psychological thriller drama, honestly. Like, if I had to describe, I mean, this album literally is a movie. It's my movie about my life and the cycles I go through, you know what I'm saying? It's gotta be a psychological thriller about somebody literally going through their own mental in different ways and their day-to-day life, how easily it can change, you know what I'm saying? I think that would probably be the best way to describe it, a psychological thriller drama. What's one lyric from the album that really hits you? All right, I gotta be careful because I don't want to spoil the album like crazy. But if I had to pick one lyric from the whole album that really hits, I'm gonna say this, and I'm not gonna give full context to this because I don't want to spoil the whole album. But I'm gonna say that the lines that really hit me the most that I made are, "But can't let the smile on me fade. I pick up the pieces, I line them up even. I stick them with glue, then secure them with tape. I'm wearing this face so no one will question my state." That is probably the 4-bar scheme that is the most impactful for me. And as far as why that is the most impactful, I mean, you can piece together what it means pretty easily, but so I won't sit here and explain it, but it's just it really solidifies a really important part of myself that I really processed and thought about. And I'm really gonna leave it at that because I don't want to talk too much into songs you haven't heard yet, you know? What were you trying to understand or express while making it? I wanted to challenge myself sonically and production-wise, for one. So I wanted to do that. But I also wanted to talk about, and I've said this before, but I wanted to talk about things that I don't talk about and really hammer them home and show other people these things in a way that they can consume in a listenable fashion where it's still a bop, you know what I'm saying? But I really wanted to challenge myself to talk about this stuff, and I'm still like iffy about the idea of like people hearing it, because I don't want them to take it in a way that's gonna make them uncomfortable and worry about me in ways they don't have to. But I definitely will say that I really want to show myself in all forms, you know what I'm saying? I've showed Jay a little bit in my stuff, but I wanted to show Jay way more than Dantaé this time. Both are present. Both personas are present for sure. But I wanted to make sure that Jay really came through, you know, in this album. I think that's probably the best way to explain that. How has making this album changed you? It taught me a lot, to be honest. Like, I mean, it taught me a lot in terms of how to make different styles of music on top of like just hip hop, I guess. But also it really kind of let me, I don't know, analyze myself a little bit more, to really dig deep and understand certain emotions and accept them, honestly, that they are there, not to pretend that they aren't, you know? I mean, not that they're always there, of course, but if they show up, if they arrive, it's not something to just ignore. You know what I'm saying? They happen and everybody has them. And I wanted to express to other people that I am a human being like everybody else. Like I am somebody that's always hyped, always happy, I'm smiling and whatever, making jokes. But since I'm a human being, I have the other side as well, you know what I'm saying? And I just felt like I had to say that to myself too, because I tend to just pretend I'm not the same in certain aspects. And in some ways, obviously, I'm not, because I feel like I have an easier tendency to look at the positive, but that doesn't mean that the negative isn't there. I don't have to pretend like it's not, you know what I'm saying? And I think that is probably one of the big things that changed. It made me really understand myself better. What kind of environment should people listen to this album? I mean, there's a lot of options. Honestly, only really a singular song I could say is one that you could bump in the club. And I mean that wholeheartedly too. That is a club song, 100% the way it sounds. But the other ones, I mean, a lot of it is like, not this, I feel like the only way to listen to this album really is all the way through over and over. But obviously not entirely doable. If you're gonna listen to it though, I think a late night drive for some of it is perfect, and some of it is summer with the windows down bumping, you know what I'm saying? Like listening to it at a party scene or something like that. It depends. It could be either or, depending on which tracks you're listening to, you know what I'm saying? So it's just, don't listen to this album in like a daycare or something. That's about all I can really say. You can listen to it anywhere, man. Oh, some of them are really gonna hit hard in the gym. It depends on where you are in the album, you know? What's a moment from recording that stands out? Oof. Honestly, the moment that stands out the most, and I won't say which song it is, but I had to do a aggressive, raunchy, like, voice, and I kept fucking up the lyrics. and my throat felt like it was going to bleed, and I was getting mad that I couldn't get it right. I was like, oh my god, why can't I say this freaking line? I kept messing on like the last 3 lines, and it was cooking me. My throat was hurting. I remember that very vividly. It fucking sucked, bro. That is definitely the moment that stands out the most, for sure. How many songs did you make versus what made the final cut? Bro, look, I made 13 tracks, and 13 tracks made the final cut, because like I said, I already knew the track list. I just didn't have the songs written. Now, if I'm very specific about this, then technically there are 2 other songs that didn't make it, and that's because I wrote them to a different beat and didn't like them. I talked about Juggling. That version never gonna see light of day. I don't think that song is even worth showing. It's no. The other one was the other version of Main Attraction, which was an entirely different beat and an entirely different way of doing it. But I ended up just like scrapping scrapping that because I was like, it's good, but it's not the good I want. So I scrapped it. So technically speaking, there are 2 songs that didn't make the final cut. I didn't even record them though, you know? So it barely counts, but you get what I'm saying. When did you know the album was done? I mean, shoot, I played that album front to back before the songs were finished, so I would have the empty beats in there with the songs that were done, and I would hear them all back. And I was like, when these songs are written, this album's gonna be done. 100%. This beat, the beats and the songs I have done flow way too well together. And as I started building onto it and putting the songs in there that were finished in instead of the beats, I was like, God, this is starting to sound so much more like what I want it to be every time, every single time. And then that last time that I played it all back one more time after mixing it again, I was like, yeah, no, this is done. This is done. I submitted it the same night. Literally. I stayed up till 3 a.m. that night knowing I had to get up at 7 to go to work, bro. Like, but I was so locked, and I knew that I had made exactly what I wanted. The thing that is going to be, in my humble opinion, the best album I have ever made and might ever make, honestly. Like, there are going to be other albums in different directions that'll be the best for another reason, but in terms of just like what I did with this in so many different fashions, this is the best. I knew. How should fans prepare for this album? Listen to the last 2 or 3, I guess, if you count the EP as well. But that isn't really so much in the, I mean, it kind of is in terms of like me experimenting, but listen to the rest of Dantaé's music, because you're gonna really see the growth. You're going to see what I learned over time, and really just, I don't know, prepare yourself to find time to listen to the whole album in one go rather than break it into pieces, because it is meant to be heard in order all the way through without stopping, because it is a journey that doesn't stop. It's supposed to be continuous. So that's another thing that's very important. What's next after the release? A break. A fucking break. Okay, I don't need to do anything else related to this right now. I might film music videos at some point if I can find, you know, a place to do them for certain songs that I can imagine doing videos for. But otherwise, I just would like to focus on my other hobbies for a bit because this took a lot out of me. Not that it was an awful experience, but it was a lot of work. So I am definitely taking a little bit of a breather. Not that I'm done with music, because I have ideas for other things that I never thought I'd even have. I thought I'd be done after Legend in the Making, to be honest. But yeah, no, I'm gonna just take some time to process this album coming out and accept what people have to say about it, and, you know, just be happy that I'm done. And finally, the last thing is, why should people tap in on release day? There's a couple answers to this, okay? For one, if you want to show your support, listen to it the day it comes out. If you really want to show your support, listen to it the night it comes out at 12 a.m. Though a lot of people need to work nowadays, so they can't really do that. I'm crackhead, so I usually, if I can, I'll try to listen to albums at 12 a.m. depending on how long they are. But if you listen to it on release day, that would be very supportive of you. That'd be great. Now, the other alternative reason is, if you listen to it on release day, it was released on that day for a reason. It's a Wednesday. It's not a Friday. Most people release music on Fridays. I picked a Wednesday, April Fool's Day, specifically because of the ideas and the themes of the album. So if you want to be really cool about it and understand you can understand it if you listen to it on any day, really, but if you listen to it on the day of, that just, I don't know, it might hit a little harder for whatever reason. I don't know. You'll understand why I picked that day, because that's when it came out. But realistically, it's mostly a support reason, honestly. But I did pick April Fool's Day for a specific reason. And a little side thing, people keep thinking that I am not releasing the album and that I picked April Fool's Day to be like, I got you, no album. No, it's gonna release. It's just that day fits very well. Well, that's all the questions that I'm going to answer that they gave me. They actually gave some pretty good questions, considering it's, you know, an AI, you know, chat. But, you know, everybody knows ChatGPT is a pretty solid tool if you use it right. So I really did enjoy doing this, because I got to talk about some things I didn't really know how to figure out how to talk about if it wasn't asked of me. You know what I'm saying? So that was pretty cool. I hope you enjoyed watching me do this little interview. I mean, little is an understatement. It's pretty long, I think. But regardless, thank you for watching, man. And I can't wait to release this album on April 1st, man. I cannot wait. And y'all are just, I think y'all are in for a treat, man. I put my all into this. I put my heart into it. And I can't wait till you'll see what I managed to conjure up, you know? Step into the circus. Free admission tickets you ain't need to purchase. Got him feeling nervous. Running, screaming, cursing. Tongue is always burning, mouth equivalent to furnace.